Let's talk about the very popular betta fish. The betta fish grows to a little over 2.5 inches or 6 centimeters, and the minimum aquarium size to keep one is either 5 or 10 gallon depending on a few factors, which includes fin type, age, health, and activity level of your betta fish. So let's first go over betta fish tank size and which one is perfect for your betta fish. A 5 to 10 gallon aquarium would be the minimum for your betta fish based on a few factors. The 4 factors in order of importance are fin variety, activity level, health, and sex of your betta fish. First, we'll go over fin variety. Plicats or short fin bettas should always have a minimum of a 10-gallon aquarium, with 20 gallons being preferred for active betta fish. Plicats and short fin varieties of bettas are significantly more active compared to long fin betta fish, so a 5-gallon is not an option for them. But if you have a long fin betta, you should base their tank size off their activity level. If they're an especially active betta fish, go for a 10-gallon. They'll certainly appreciate the extra room. If they're less active or in poor health, a 5-gallon will suffice. This is especially true for fin varieties such as the rose-tail bettas, which have excessively long fins, which impact their ability to swim, and that's the impact of fin variety on betta fish tank size. Now let's go over how activity level affects the minimum tank size. Their true activity level may not present itself when you first get your betta fish. For that reason, 5 gallons can work initially for longfin bettas. But if their activity level increases as their health improves, I highly recommend upgrading to a 10 or 20 gallon aquarium. Betta fish can be active, but not all are. If you have an especially inactive betta, which can occur with older age, a 5 gallon can suffice for them. And that's the impact of activity level on betta fish tank size. Next, let's go over the impact of health on your betta fish tank size. As mentioned previously, betta fish are typically in poor health when first purchased from the pet store. This is typically due to exposure to high levels of ammonia and nitrite in their store environment. It can take a couple of weeks to a few months for them to fully recover, and during that time, a smaller aquarium of 5 to 10 gallons could be beneficial for them. The smaller tank size is mainly to make it easier for them to find and eat food, which will improve their health over time. But once they improve their health and start to become more active, an upgrade may be needed to a 10 or 20 gallon aquarium, depending on the other factors. And that's the main impact of health on betta fish tank size. The last impactful quality is sex of your betta fish, whether they are male or female. Males will typically have longer fin compared to females, which will restrict their activity level. Though this is not always true, it is often true. That being said, because females typically have shorter fins, they will require more room to swim in their aquarium. And for that reason, a 10-gallon minimum would be applicable to female betta fish, just like placat betta fish. The only time a 5-gallon will suffice for any betta fish is if they're old, in poor health, or a less active longfin betta fish similar to the rose-tail betta. Otherwise, a larger aquarium would be preferred, as this will reduce the amount of pH swings that occur and nitrate accumulation from occurring, making it easier for you to maintain your aquarium. So if you have a capability of going larger with your tank size, I highly recommend doing so. Now that we've talked about betta fish tank size, let's talk about their natural environment. They exclusively inhabit still or sluggish waterways. A few of their habitats include rice paddies, puddles, swamps, and streams. Due to their still water habitats, their water typically has negligible dissolved oxygen, which is the reason they evolved their labyrinth organ, aka their primitive lung. This primitive lung allows them to uptake oxygen by gulping air from the surface of the water instead of breathing through their gills. As for the substrate for this species, it is not very important at all. Now let's talk about setting up an aquarium for them. The betta is a highly adaptable species which will accept most aquarium conditions, though because they're still in sluggish water habitats, care should be taken not to have excessive flow in your aquarium. For that reason, sponge filters are recommended for this species. If you'd like to replicate their natural environment, having floating plants or plenty of submerged plants would be a great way to do so. Tannin staining is optional, which can be achieved by driftwood and botanicals being added to the aquarium, and adding tannins can help them feel more bold in their environment by reducing the amount of light they're exposed to. And lastly, a lid is recommended for the betta fish, because they are a species prone to jumping out of the aquarium. Now let's talk about the diet for this species. In nature, the betta fish is an insectivore, eating primarily insect larvae and aquatic worms, with more food items being included but not making up a substantial part of their diet. In captivity, they should be fed a carnivorous diet. If your betta fish is wild caught, it's recommended to feed primarily live and frozen food. This is because wild bettas don't have adequate digestive enzymes for pellets most of the time. But if you have a captive bred betta, which is most of the time, you can feed pellets or flakes on a regular basis. I do recommend supplementing with frozen food in that case. Now let's go over the behavior for the betta fish. Betta behavior is quite varied. Some captive bred bettas are very aggressive, while others are very docile, and the rest exists in the spectrum between the two. But there are specific tank mates which can be safe with betta fish if you have a larger aquarium. But before you try tank mates, I would recommend the mirror test. The mirror test is where you hold a mirror up to your betta fish in order to gauge their aggression level. Because betta fish have not passed a self-recognition or a mirror test, they will not identify the betta fish as themselves and respond to it as if it's another fish. If the betta fish becomes extremely aggressive, then it is likely the tank mates will not work. But if the betta fish ignores the mirror and their reflection in it, it is possible that tank mates will work. So let's go over tank mates for betta fish. As mentioned previously, betta fish can be a territorial species, and sadly, as they become further domesticated, they become more and more territorial. As a beginner, it's typically recommended to keep them by themselves, but as you advance in the hobby, options for tank mates become possible. The first rule for stocking fish with betta fish is to avoid long-fin fish. The reason is twofold. First, the betta may perceive the long-fin fish as an odd-looking betta, and as a result, territorial aggression could increase. Second is that you want the fish to be able to outswim the betta fish, and long fins can impede a fish's ability to swim fast. An exception to this is guppies and Endler's livebearers. The second rule is that they have to be fast in order to outswim the betta fish. Now let's talk about some species that will work with male betta fish. First, we have tetra varieties. All tetras need to be in schools of at least 6. Keeping them in too small schools can increase the risk of fin nipping occurring and injury to your betta fish. Two species that will work with them are cardinal tetras and ember tetras. Cardinal tetras are a little more sensitive compared to the ember tetras, but they have pretty nice color, and they enjoy the warm water that betta fish thrive in. Both of these species are fairly social fish and would require an aquarium of at least 20 gallons to thrive with a betta fish. The extraterritorial will reduce the risk of fin nipping occurring and injury to your betta. Next options are rasboras. First, we have the Boreas genus of rasbora, which includes the popular Chili rasbora. For this whole genus, they will require an aquarium of at least 20 gallons in groups of at least 15 to thrive in your care. These large groups make them feel more secure in their environment and will allow you to see them significantly more often. Now another group of rasboras that will work are the Heteromorphia genus, which includes harlequin rasboras, porkchop rasboras, and glowlight rasboras. These species do not have as much vibrant color compared to the Boreas genus rasbora, but they are fast, small, and very safe tank mates for your betta fish. These would be my most recommended species. These species will require a 15-gallon minimum in a group of at least 6 to thrive in your care. Now let's talk about some bottom dwellers that will work with them. First, we have the Corydora genus, and first we have the pygmy Corydora. This is a nanospecies of cory catfish, staying less than 1 inch in length in adulthood. In addition to that, they're the most common nanospecies of cory in the hobby. These will require a group of 10 minimum and a 20-gallon aquarium minimum. The next cory that will work is the ever-popular Corydora aeneas, which is called the bronze and albino Corydora. This is the larger species, growing to about 2 inches in length, and being the most commonly seen cory in the hobby. Because of their size, they require a 20-gallon minimum in groups of at least 6 to thrive for you. The next bottom dweller we have are coolie loaches. We have the typical striped coolie loach, as well as the black coolie loach, and some wild options in the Pangeo genus. All of these species will require groups of at least 6 and a 20-gallon minimum to thrive for you. Next, we'll go over 2 species of pleco, which will work with your betta fish. The minimum aquarium size for these plecos would be a 20-gallon, with larger being even better. First up, we have the clown pleco, which is an algivore and biofilm grazer. For that reason, they require wood in their aquarium, both as a food source and a fiber source. Then we have a herbivorous pleco, the bristlenose pleco. This one would do better in a 29-gallon due to their bioload, and they'll eat veggies, extra food, and whatever else they can scavenge in your aquarium. They also have several color and fin variations, so if you want, you can get a fancy one. The second to last group are snails, with one included in this profile. And we have the Nerite snail, which needs a minimum of a 5-gallon aquarium and is a herbivore. They will eat many algae varieties that grow on glass, and they have some interesting shell pattern options, including the racer, striped, and spotted Nerite snail. And last, we'll go over how you can test if your betta fish will accept shrimp. Not all betta fish will accept shrimp, so I recommend doing these steps to make sure you don't lose a ton of money. On shrimp, first get ghost shrimp. These are cheap and transparent shrimp, so if your betta attacks them, they will likely not accept any other tank mates. If your ghost shrimp survives for a week, I recommend getting a mono shrimp. If your ghost shrimp survives for a week, I recommend getting a mono shrimp. They are a great algae eater, and having one would be beneficial for that purpose. If it survives for a week with its more opaque color, you can try fancy color shrimp, called Neocaridina shrimp. These have bright colors such as red, yellow, blue, and green, so they are the most likely variety to be eaten. Providing plenty of plants and hiding spaces for the shrimp will reduce the risk of them being eaten by your betta. But if you want to try shrimp with your betta fish, I recommend trying them in that order. And that has been the betta fish profile. Like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video.